Hey everybody, I'm Chef Tom with atbbq.com, and this is the No Wrap Pork Butt. Well, if you're looking to smoke a pork butt with maximum bark and minimal effort, then the no wrap method is the way to go. And it's as easy as it sounds. Once you get that pork butt onto the smoker, you're not gonna touch it until it's completely cooked through. Now, a lot of times when we're smoking pork butts, we will wrap just to expedite the cook time and to retain some of the moisture. But what you lose in that process is that really crispy, crunchy bark on the outside. Now, the Boston butt is one of those pieces of meat that just has a ton of intramuscular fat, and that's really what's gonna make your meat nice and juicy. But we're gonna hedge our bets today by injecting a little bit more of the pork marinade into the center so that we have a juicy product on the inside, crispy exterior. Before we get to that, we gotta trim it up. So what we're working with today is a 10.5 pound Duroc pork butt from Creekstone Farms. On this side, you'll see there's the fat cap. On the opposite side, we got the blade bone, and then there's this crevice here with a lot of stringy tissue that we don't want to leave on there. And for the most part, that's what we're gonna be trimming on this pork butt. So I'm gonna start by just kind of opening this up, and then we're gonna start to get rid of some of this tissue that's on the surface. Now underneath this tissue, you can even see some silver skin here. We definitely want to get rid of that because that's not something that breaks down in the cooking process. So the best way to do that, I often slip my knife underneath it, pull and make a little tab, and then you can kind of just work your way down right on the surface of the meat and underneath the silver skin. So all of this meat surface is now exposed. We've gotten rid of a lot of that chewy stuff. And now we can get our seasoning right here into the meat once we start that process. Now let's take a look at the rest of the butt here. Maybe just a little bit of excessive stuff right here on the surface that we can get rid of. But for the most part, you can do as much or as little trimming as you want here. Nice big money muscle on that. That looks really nice. Now let's check out the fat cap. Now there are situations where you may want to remove the fat cap in order to get more smoke and seasoning down to the meat. This is not one of those situations. Because we're going to be cooking this for a long period of time, open, we want all of this thermal insulation, that extra juiciness to stay on the edge. Plus, if we lose some of the fat cap in the end, no big deal, we've still got all the great meat underneath. So the only thing I'm going to do here is just score the surface. There's a couple of reasons for this. One is you can kind of get some seasoning down in there, but also if some of this wants to stick to the grate in the end, you're going to just lose little bits of it rather than it all peeling off in one piece. So this is all trimmed up. At this point, we're ready to inject. When it comes to injection, the goal here is to add both moisture and flavor to the pork. Now, there's a lot of different options that people like to use. Apple juice is a big one. Pineapple juice is great. I like to add a little soy sauce. You can make a cocktail of all kinds of flavors, whatever you're into, but you're gonna want some sweet, you're gonna want some salt in there. What we're gonna use today is the Smoke on Wheels pork marinade and injection, and it's got all those things we just talked about. It's got the pineapple juice, the apple juice, it's got brown sugar, it's got salt, soy sauce. It's even got a little tamarind in it, which is really unique. I really like this product, so this is what we're gonna use to add all of that flavor to the pork. Now, typically we're gonna do about an ounce per pound. Since we're right around 10 pounds, that's gonna be a little over a cup. We're gonna load up the pistol grip. And typically I'll start on the inside here. There's a chunk of meat that sits on top of that blade. We'll go a couple pumps in here. Right next to that blade, a couple pumps in here. That horn muscle down there. And then we'll start working on this top bit. And I just kind of work around in a grid pattern. A couple of pumps. Make yourself a little pocket. A little bit's gonna come back out, but most of it's gonna stay in. And honestly, when it starts coming back out, that's how you know you've filled it up. Let's flip it over and get the opposite side. get right underneath that fat cap. And then we're going to get close to the bone. We're just going to work around it. All right, it's poured a little more than a cup. Not much left in the bottom of there. This thing is now pumped full of liquid and flavor. We're going to get some of that excess off the surface and season it up. So we're going to do a little combo action on our rubs today. We've got the Meat Church Honey Bacon Barbecue. This is a sugar first rub with salt after. And then we've got the Yardbird, which is a salt first with the sugar after. This is a saltier rub for sure, and I love the red color on it. This is a sweeter rub that needs just a little bit more salt sometimes, so I like the combination of the two to balance them out. So we're going to start with a layer of the honey bacon. Kind of work that in there a little bit. And then on top of that, we'll add the Yardbird. And then we're just going to cover all surfaces in that same manner. We get the seasoning all the way to the center by opening up this crevice here. All right, we've got full coverage now. This stuff is already starting to look wet on the surface, and that's what we want it to do. We want to know that it's attached. So this thing's going to be ready to go onto the grill pretty much immediately. Well, today we're cooking on the Yoder Smokers YS640S pellet grill. We're currently running at 250 degrees, but I've got a pork butt on there that's been cooking all night at a much lower temperature. So this butt went on last night, actually at midnight. At about 190 degrees, it smoked all night long. It's currently close to 11 a.m., so it's been on for a long time, but you can see the great bark formation that we've got. If I were to temp this, it's coming up on 180 right now. We're aiming for 205-ish, so that won't have too much longer. We have turned the pit up to 250 degrees now. We'll go ahead and put this fresh one up top here. And the timeline for this one will be a little bit different, but we can talk about that. So at 250 degrees, you're probably looking at about an hour per pound on your pork butt. You're gonna get this 10-pound butt done in about 9 to 10 hours with this style of cooking specifically. That's not universal for all pork or for different methods where you would wrap, but for what we're doing today, that's probably a safe bet. Now, the one we already put on, I didn't want to get up super early today and start filming at 4 in the morning so that we could be out of here. So I put it on last night. Put it on at midnight at 190 degrees, and then you can kind of turn it up in the morning. All you're going to do when you do that is prolong the cook time. So it's up to you. There's really no rule as to what perfect temperature to cook at. I would keep it under 300. Typically, I know some people like to go hot and fast, but for something like this, anywhere from 200 to 275 is a great cooking temperature. All right, guys, we are now temping over 200 degrees in the deepest part of this pork butt, and as you can see, that's nice and tender. We're gonna pull this off and shred it up. Now, like I said, the fat will want to stick. We're gonna get as much of that off as we can. But look at that, just pure bark. I mean, this is the bark lover's technique right here. And the great thing about pulled pork is you don't have to rest it because you're just gonna shred it up anyway. Let's get to it. All right, so let's go ahead and wiggle this blade bone out of here. Well, that's not a problem. It comes right out. Boy, just tons of texture on this thing, that's for sure. and so tender. Just shredding apart right away. And you can see we've still got plenty of juice. That pork is not dried out. Now, one thing I find when I use this technique is that the bottom, that fat cap, that stuff gets pretty crunchy. So what I like to do is separate that fat cap, and I'll chop it up to the side and then incorporate that crunchy stuff back into it. Well, it's that sticky kind of crunchy. Lots of flavor in that little fat right there. And just work those little like crackling like bits in with the rest of that pulled pork. Definitely not just dripping with juice like a wrapped butt would, but you certainly get the trade-off of all the texture in that bark. And because of the injection and because of the fat on that fat cap, kind of doing some insulation, it's not dried out. I'm gonna finish this off with some Tar Heel Tang. Nice vinegar sauce for dipping. Let's find a good piece with some bark. And grab some of that shred and give it a dunk. Oh yeah. Love the tang of that sauce. But, I mean, obviously the pork's the star of the show. That bark, really great. On the outside, we get that saltiness from the Yardbird, that honey sweetness from the meat church, but the smoke is the star of the show. I mean, you put a butt on a Yoder for 10 to 12 hours and tell me that pellet grills don't make smoke, I'm not gonna believe you. That's smoky. Well, thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to check out atbbq.com for all the products featured in today's video. If you enjoy the recipe, hit that subscribe button. And if you have any questions or comments or there's anything you'd like to see me cook, let me know in the comment section down below, and let's be good to one another. For more recipes, tips, and techniques, head over to atbbq.com/thesauce. All things barbecue, where barbecue legends are made.